Welcome to the wacky, wonderful world of relationships. Good evening. This is Dr. Katrina Wood, clinical psychologist, director of the Wilshire Valley Therapy Centers in Los Angeles and Encino and Oxnard. Welcome to the show. We have a really good show this evening, and I want to welcome back, first of all, Dr. Stephen Diamond, who was on our show earlier in the year in 2008. Dr. Stephen Diamond is an international author of a controversial book called Anger, Madness, and the Daimonic, published by New York Press in Albany.
State University Press,
Albany. Dr. Diamond is also a clinical psychologist and director of the Existential Humanistic Institute in Los Angeles. And welcome to the show, Dr. Diamond.
Thank you very much. Good to be back.
Good to have you here. And on my left, as always, it is great to see Stephen Feldman, MFT, and licensed psychotherapist in Santa Monica.
Yes.
And welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I paranoid, or do I feel like I'm being watched this evening?
I think you're paranoid and being watched. I think. Well, this evening we decided, because it's 2009, we're going to start by videoing the show, and we will, once it's been edited, we're going to have it up on YouTube, and then it will also be on my blog, drkatrinawood.com. So if you want to watch the show instead of listening to the show, then go to the blog next week. I would imagine probably in the middle of the week it'll be up there, and you can click on it, and then just you can actually see us and participating in our little booth here in the studio. So that's something new for you to enjoy. So, yep. We want to. I'm noticing I'm moving my head back to right and left here, and it's a little bit difficult. I guess I'm just going to have to do that, and we'll figure out the miking and the seating next time we do it. But
it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Thank you very much.
I think you're doing fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This evening, before we start on the topic of the evening, I just wanted to make a couple of disclaimers. First of all, just to remind you that this is a psychological show in a general sense, and that we talk about psychology in a general way. So if anything resonates for you, then please be mindful of taking it into your own therapy. For any questions or comments you might have, or any thoughts you have, take it into your own therapy for your own personal growth. And I also want you to know that this is a live phone-in show. So if you have any calls or questions on the topic this evening, then please do call us at 347-945-5451. That is
347-945-5451.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dr. Stephen Diamond, and this happened last year, so I'm going to say Dr. Steve.
As you wish.
Make it easy. Mm-hmm. Make it easy on me. I wanted to go back and also want to mention your blog, which is called Evil Deeds on Psychology Today, which is a terrific blog. And it's a controversial blog, and it does really focus in on the area of your expertise in particular, which, although it is humanistic and existential, is also really focuses on the definition and the description of the daimonic. You speak about it quite a bit. And narcissistic rage, murderous rage, and the genesis of evil. And
well, I speak in that blog really largely from the perspective of my role as a forensic psychologist,
right?
Which is another part of what I do. So, hence the evil deeds and criminality and violence and that sort of thing.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I write about in there.
And in writing about that, you frequently mention the presence of what is called the daimonic, and just downloading off the internet the descriptions of the daimonic. There's been particular emphasis in the descriptions from Carl Jung, Marie-Louise von Franz, Rollo May, and yourself. But without quoting the definitions from them, I would like you to maybe just give a brief overview of how you encapsulate the daimonic what it means for you. And then we're going to go on this evening in particular to talk about a couple of controversial cases that are in the news currently, and maybe how the daimonic applies, to these situations.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll try to keep it brief and simple. The daimonic is an old idea. It actually originated in ancient Greece, but Rollo May is the psychologist who brought it into prominence in the 1960s. And essentially, the daimonic is a way of thinking about human nature and thinking about the psyche and the workings of the psyche. When Carl Jung wrote about his notion of the shadow, really he had in mind the daimonic. He was familiar with this concept, and that was informing what he was trying to say about the shadow. And what he was trying to say was that emotions, let's say, for example, anger or rage, or it can be other emotions as well, that are chronically repressed, tend to become destructive and tend to have the power to take possession of the individual and to drive the individual into destructive behavior. But at the same time, those same emotions, the daimonic, is potentially creative and constructive if one can become conscious of it, and if one can assimilate it into one's personality and into one's life.
Well, now I'd like your feedback on that. But what I want to understand first of all is, because I know that it has been written about as being creative and destructive,
by definition.
Definition, and from your perspective, we come into this world with a daimonic. I was listening to the last radio show, and I think you clarified the fact that the daimonic is not something that is manifested due to certain circumstances or experiences, but that we enter the world with this power that exists within us. Is that the
yes? Although circumstances and experiences affect that and affect how we relate to that power,
depending on which course or direction our lives take, and also depending on perhaps the kind of childhood we experience and the circumstances we experience in childhood.
Sure. And how much, for example, how much repression goes on.
Of
the daimonic. How much repression goes on.
So,
because that affects then how the daimonic is experienced and how it is expressed.
Okay.
Or not expressed, as the case may be.
Or not expressed.
Yeah.
What when Dr. Diamond says repression of the daimonic, what do you hear?
Well, the first thing that comes into my mind is if you take something like anger, for instance. That's a good place to start. A lot of people think anger is destructive, or anger is bad, or anger is something that you should repress. And
right.
I can recall being angry on many occasions and cleaning my entire house, making phone calls that I wasn't going to make because I've been putting it off, journaling about it and writing and coming up with creative ideas, all sparked from anger.
Okay.
So those the constructive.
That's the constructive
channeling.
But
of,
I don't think
anger.
that Steve was conscious when he did that. When you said if it's consciously directed creatively, but I don't think the daimonic has to be conscious in order to be creative. Like you weren't conscious of what you were angry
I was conscious that I had to do something with the anger. I've used anger in the past in a really destructive way.
Is that what you mean by conscious?
Well, if he was aware of it, then that's conscious.